Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Judith TB. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. And we begin with the latest from America, where New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on 5 federal charges, including bribery and conspiracy linked to alleged illegal actions dating back to 2014. The indictment claims Adams accepted luxury travel and other benefits from a Turkish official in exchange for favorable treatment, including pressuring the NYC Fire Department to expedite the opening of a consular building. Adams, who took office in January of 2022, expressed his intent to defend himself and urged the public to wait for his defense. Federal investigators executed a search warrant at Gracie Mansion following the indictment. Several prominent political figures have already called for his resignation.
Charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies. But they would not be surprising. I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. For months, leaks and rumors have been aimed at me in an attempt to undermine my credibility and paint me as guilty. Just this past week, they...
And for more on this, I'm joined by our chief international correspondent, Hafia Hagen. Hafia, tell us, what has been Mayor Eric Adams' response to the charges levied against him?
Well, as you can see there, Mayor Adams is defiant in that speech. That was certainly the impression he was giving. So he said that he wanted the public to wait to hear our defense before making any judgments. And he said he looks forward to defending himself and defending the people of the city, that is New York, as he's done throughout his career. He is expressing and saying that this is some sort of conspiracy against him, potentially, that people have been out to get him since he was made mayor of New York, and therefore this is the culmination of that. This is what's happening. This is what he's been going through for the past 10 months. But certainly, like you saw in that speech that he was given in that press conference, he is defiant and is determined to carry on as the mayor of New York.
And where does this indictment stem from?
Well, these charges are quite complicated, but basically, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan began scrutinizing his connection to Turkish officials and businessmen and the campaign donations that he received for them. So the indictment states that Adams received gifts and accepted illegal contributions to his campaign. So in 2018, when he announced his plan to run for the mayor of New York City, he accepted and sought illegal campaign contributions to his mayoral campaign. It's also stated that he started accepting contributions for his campaign for re-election, which would have taken place in 2025. The businesses also circumvented a city's ban on corporate contributions by funneling those particular donations through multiple employees. Now, a senior advisor in the Turkish diplomatic establishment who facilitated money straw donations to the mayor and also arranged for him and the people around him, his posse, so to speak, to get free and discounted travel to Turkey and to stay in very posh hotels while they were there, free meals, free flights. Quite a lot going on in this indictment, but it's all about the illegal contributions to his campaign, him getting free trips to Turkey, staying in posh hotels, getting free meals, a whole litany of charges.
And what has been the wider reaction to the indictment?
Well, lots of prominent people have been calling for the mayor to resign, and the most probably well-known and respected of them is the U.S. representative, the Democratic representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She has called for his resignation. And if he was to resign, the job of who would be the high-profile job, excuse me, of who would be the mayor of the US's most populous city would fall to the city's public advocate, who would be Jermaine Williams. That would be until an election occurs. But the calls for his resignation have been coming from far and wide.
And I mean, the question now in everyone's minds would be, what happens next for Mayor Adams?
Well, Eric Adams is still the mayor. He hasn't been arrested. He isn't in prison. He is still doing the job of mayor. That's what he would like people to think. And he's going to stay in that position until he is forced to resign, or perhaps he is forced out. Now, this is historic because it is the first time a sitting mayor and of the US's most populous city, New York, has been indicted while he has been in office. I think it's unlikely that he will stay in that job for much longer. And at the moment, he says that he is looking forward to having his day in court and looking forward to being able to defend himself. But he also says that his day-to-day will not change and he will keep on working for the people of New York. Now, it will come to pass whether the people of New York will want him to keep on working for them. And that could be when the real judgment comes.
Well, solid analysis there. Thank you so much, Afia. We appreciate you for doing this with us. Afia Hagen, she is the chief international correspondent here for News Central TV. Once again, thank you. We'll switch gears now to talk about the U.S. elections. And one of the most hot-button issue about this election is the economy. And both candidates have been campaigning in the key states of Pennsylvania and North Carolina, putting across their vision for a better, richer America. Harris pushed herself as a capitalist, while Trump claimed that foreign entities wanted to assassinate him because of his economic plan. For News Central, Chief International Correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, seeking to sharpen her economic message, pledged to usher in new investments in domestic manufacturing across a range of industries if elected to the White House in November. In a speech in the must-win state of Pennsylvania, Harris cast herself as the best person for the job of president, with a pragmatic approach to boosting the middle class. In a tactic rebuttal to Republican claims that she supports communist policies, Harris described herself as a capitalist.
The American people face a choice between two fundamentally very different paths for our economy. I intend to chart a new way forward and grow America's middle class. Donald Trump intends to take America backward to the failed policies of the past.
An hour before the speech, her Republican rival Donald Trump touted his own economic agenda, including a 15% Made in America tax proposal, whilst visiting North Carolina. At a campaign event in Mint Hill, Trump defended his tariff proposals and suggested they were the reason people in other countries want to kill me.
Meanwhile, we have the president of Iran in our country this week. We have large security forces guarding him, and yet they're threatening our former president and the leading candidate to become the next president of the United States. Certainly a strange set of circumstances. Around the world, our enemies are desperate to prevent Donald Trump from returning to the White House because they know I will make America great again. They don't want that.
Both candidates are campaigning in battleground states this week on their competing visions for the economy, a key issue that voters say is a top priority in casting a ballot. Though the race remains close, Harris has opened up a narrow lead in national polling since the two candidates met on a debate stage earlier this month. The economy routinely emerges as a top issue for voters this November, and both candidates have touted populist policies, with Harris appearing to mirror a Trump proposal to end taxation on service workers' tips. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
You're watching news beyond the continent here on News Central TV. After the break, we'll tell you about the EU as it rejects Russian President Putin's move. After this, there's more. Stay with us. We switch gears now to Europe, where the European Union on Thursday rejected as reckless and irresponsible a plan by President Vladimir Putin to authorize a nuclear response to a massive air attack on Russia. Putin on Wednesday announced an updated nuclear doctrine that would allow the use of nuclear weapons against non-nuclear states when they are supported by nuclear powers, a clear reference to Ukraine and its Western backers. The proposed broadening of Russia's nuclear rules, which Putin himself has the power to approve, comes as Ukraine seeks permission from Western allies to use long-range weaponry to strike targets deep inside Russia.
Just the continuation of the very irresponsible and unacceptable behavior on the side of Putin, showing basically to the whole world, especially during the United Nations General Assembly High-Level Week, his true face, that he doesn't shy away from playing the nuclear gamble over and over again. So we, of course, strongly reject these threats, and the position of the European Union remains unchanged.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius is calling for the reintroduction of military conscription in Germany, stating that ending it after the Cold War was a mistake. During a press conference in Lithuania, Pistorius warned that a Russian victory in Ukraine would have devastating consequences for all freedom-loving nations. This comes as Germany prepares to station a brigade of troops in Lithuania. Pistorius is advocating for a new form of military conscription to bolster Germany's defense. Now, this move is seen as a response to the growing security concerns in the region. By reviving conscription, Germany aims to enhance its military capabilities and strengthen its position against potential threats.
We must ensure that Putin cannot and will not have his way. He must not succeed. The consequences would be horrific, not only for Ukraine, not only for Europe, but for all freedom-loving countries around the world. With our decision, we reinforce the strengths of our alliance and we deliver on our promise to protect a free and democratic Europe. Our soldiers will stand shoulder to shoulder with Lithuanian forces, ready to defend this country. Just as the alliance, I'm working hard to ensure that our spending and investments will continue to rise, and it needs to rise. 2% of GDP is only the baseline of our defense spending. This is a decision of the heads of state and government of the alliance, and this is the basis of our defense planning in Germany. All NATO partners must move beyond these 2%. Lithuania is a role model in this regard, also for my country. Germany, like many other countries, suspended conscription after the end of the Cold War. That was a mistake. Time has changed. Germany needs to introduce a new form of military conscription. Only by doing so will our army prevail in a state of war. Ladies and gentlemen, we will only deter aggressors by leaving no doubt. We are ready and we are capable of defending every inch of our territory.
Pope Francis kicked off a 4-day visit to Luxembourg and Belgium Thursday with an appeal for international diplomacy and negotiations amid flaring conflicts across the globe. The 87-year-old pontiff, who looked tired upon arriving in Luxembourg, planned to use his time in the two countries that host many of Europe's top institutions to discuss the continent's role in the world. After a meeting with authorities at the Grand Ducal Palace, Francis decried the re-emergence, even on the European continent, of rifts and enmities that result in open hostilities leading to destruction and death. There is an urgent need for those in authority to engage resolutely and patiently in honest negotiations in order to resolve differences, Francis told the Assembly. Honorable compromises, he said, undermine nothing and can instead build security and peace for all. Though he cited neither conflict by name, Francis has deployed a lack of progress in negotiations to end the war in Gaza and has repeatedly pleaded for peace since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022.
E da ideologie perniciose. Lo sviluppo, infatti, per essere autentico e integrale, non deve saccheggiare e degradare la nostra casa comune, la natura, e non deve lasciare ai margini popoli o gruppi sociali. Tutti, fratelli. La ricchezza, non dimentichiamolo, è una responsabilità. Il Lussemburgo, con la sua storia peculiare, con la sua altrettanto peculiare posizione geografica, con poco meno della metà degli abitanti provenienti da altre parti dell'Europa e del mondo, sia di aiuto, di esempio nell'indicare il cammino da intraprendere per accogliere e integrare migranti e rifugiati. Purtroppo si deve considerare il riemergere anche nel continente europeo di fratture e di inimicizie che, invece di risolversi sulla base della reciproca buona volontà, delle trattative e del lavoro diplomatico, sfociano.
In the single week that world leaders convened for high-level UN talks in New York, nearly 100,000 water bottles worth of microplastics swirled through the city's air, posing known and still unknown risks to human health. And Beth Twerinen, the Norwegian International Development Minister, said that they want to stop the plastic waste and that it is a solvable problem, and is helping to lead the charge to seal a global plastics treaty in South Korea later this year. The treaty aims to marshal an international response to the plastic trash that is choking the environment from oceans and rivers to mountains and sea ice, moving up food webs as it is ingested by animals.
Reach a final perfect deal in Busan, but it will be still a landmark, I hope, making sure that we can have an even stronger agreement in the future. So that entails, for example, mechanisms to votes to have majority votes in the future agreements. We see some movement in some countries. The High Ambition Coalition, 67 countries, very clear on what we want to achieve, and that coalition cannot be ignored. And also,
a U.S. carrier strike group led by the USS Theodore Roosevelt has held a two-day joint exercise with its allies in Japan and South Korea as U.S. President Joe Biden met for talks with leaders from Japan and the Philippines at the White House. The military and diplomatic maneuvers are meant to strengthen the partners' solidarity in the face of what they see as China's aggressive military actions in the region. Some U.S. and South Korean guided missile destroyers and a Japanese warship joined the drills in the disputed East China Sea, where worries about China's territorial claims are rising. And now for some news from the UN, and that's the United Nations General Assembly meeting for the 79th session. Israel has not yet responded to a U.S.-led proposal for a 21-day ceasefire in its conflict with Hezbollah. Government spokesman, and that is David Mansey, says the Prime Minister has ordered the military to continue fighting with full force. The proposed truce aims to end the recent violence between Israel and the Lebanese armed group. Despite international efforts to broker a ceasefire, Israel is hesitant to agree, opting to continue its military operations against Hezbollah. The conflict has raised concerns globally, with the international community urging both sides to end the hostilities.
About a ceasefire being already agreed are not accurate. The Prime Minister's reiterated that, yes, of course, Israel is open to diplomacy, as we have been. It's always our go-to option. We've been within this situation for a year now. But Israel has yet to respond to this particular American-French proposal. In terms of Israel's military action to defend this country, the Prime Minister and the Chief of Staff could not have been clearer. The Prime Minister's directed the IDF to continue fighting with full...
Meanwhile, Yemen's Presidential Leadership Council Chair Rashad al-Halimi has urged the international community to take a firm stance to stop Israel's aggression on Lebanon. Addressing the UN General Assembly, al-Halimi emphasized the need for a solution to the Palestinian issue to end the Arab-Israeli conflict. Meanwhile, Israel has rejected a US-backed proposal for a 21-day ceasefire in Lebanon, vowing to continue fighting Hezbollah militants until victory. The international community is calling for an immediate end to hostilities, release of all hostages, and safe humanitarian access.
السبيل الوحيد لردع العدوان الإسرائيلي الغاشم على لبنان سيكون بموقف حازم من المجتمع الدولي ووحدة اللبنانية أنفسهم واستقلال قرارهم وعدم التدخل في شؤون بلدهم الداخلية واستعادة الدولة اللبنانية لقراري السلم والحرب. إن الحرب الإسرائيلية الوحشية على الشعب الفلسطيني يجب أن تتوقف على الفور، لأن ذلك هو مفتاح السلام المنشود ومدخل لرفع الغطاء عن ذرائع إيران ووكلائها لتأزيم الأوضاع في المنطقة. إن قصة المزايدة الإيرانية بالقضية الفلسطينية العادلة ليست وليدة اللحظة، وإنما هي تاريخ من الابتزاز والمواقف الدعائية التي لم.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. But remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, or just stream us live on YouTube. So those are all of the stories we can take. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.